Too. You are the first Muslim anchor to be hired at ESPN. Is that correct? What a segue that is.
That is correct. Amazing segue.
All right. So,
Horowitz and Islam.
Right. So how important is that first for you? Because, in doing research, as we sort of take this a little more serious, there were Muslim publications and South Asia publications that have written about you, and it's for them, it's a very signature thing. And I would think, if nothing else, there could be some kids out there, kids from Pakistan, whatever, South Asian kids out there who, if they see a face that's similar to theirs,
right,
they're like, I can do this. This is, we've had the Jamel Hills on, people of color on, women on, and Jessica Mendoza very recently.
Yeah,
and I am of the belief that, you do need visual role models if you're a young person to believe that something can happen. So if nothing else, I would argue that your importance, just you being there, does present something important for a young Muslim kid in the States who's a gigantic sports fan who now believes, okay, I can be a sports center, like that sports center anchor, or I could be a host of Baseball Tonight. That's not an impossibility for me.
I appreciate you saying that, man. It's definitely been something I take pride in. When I first got hired, I made sure I asked Al Jaffe, who was in the talent office.
Right.
I was just like, hey, I'm just curious, am I the first Muslim hired? He's like, yeah, yes, you are.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, listen, there have been obviously trailblazers in other disciplines much more important than me being the first Muslim sportscaster at ESPN. But to your point, it's pretty cool when I go to the mosque or I meet kids who say, hey, man, I had no idea you're a Muslim. It's so cool to see you on ESPN. I didn't think, you've inspired me. I've met guys in Canada who said the same thing to me. So obviously it's something you take pride in, you appreciate. What's happened, though, is that it's never been an issue. It's never been something that I consciously think of until recently. Until, unfortunately, the rise of Muslim extremists and then Trump and Cruz and all the rest of it. So It's actually really become a topic, Rich, within the last year. Prior to that, I really wouldn't even have thought about that. And now, all of a sudden, it's become a big topic because people go, I wonder what you think about these issues. And it's like, can I tweet about it? Can I not tweet about it?
Well, let me ask you, do you feel compelled to offer... we have had a very inflammatory political season with rhetoric in relation to Islam.
No question.
So have you felt compelled on a Twitter feed, which, as we know from Kurt Schilling and others, is a public feed, right? You are a public figure, but you have beliefs, I imagine, politically. So how do you negotiate that, in particular when the subject of Islam is part of the national conversation?
It's a great question. And what I did is this. I looked at it because people from my mosque, my friends, my family are saying, hey, listen, you've got to start saying stuff. You've got to denounce this person because you have a public platform. You can influence people. So my cousin Nusrat, who lives in Jersey, was like, there's this campaign, True Islam. And you go on there, it's on the website, and it explains what Islam's all about, explains all the erroneous stereotypes and things that people have unfortunately believed because whatever they may see in the media, whatever that may be. And could we have you support it? And I said, yeah, of course. And she goes, can you give us a quote? And I said, I'm far too lazy. You write the quote, and I will just agree with it, and I'm sure it's fine. So she sends it a quote, it's fine. So when she first sent it, Rich, I liked it because I go, you know what? I don't want to retweet it because technically my Twitter handle says Adnan ESPN.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? If it's my own thing, if it's Adnan Virk, you do what you want. But technically, if it says ESPN, I'm like,
it's a gray area.
It's a gray area. We're not supposed to tweet politics, religion, etc. But then Easter passed, and I'm like, well, Cannell, Schlereth, Jason Romano, Social Media Mike and Mike, they tweet pictures of the cross. Today's the day he's risen, etc. about Jesus.
Right.
I have Jewish friends, Andy Katz, Seth Greenberg, whatever. They talk about Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah.
Passover, right.
So I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's okay to do this. So the next time they tweeted it, I retweeted it. And I really want to thank, and I want to make this very clear, I appreciate it so much, from Andy Katz and Keith Law and Jessica Mendoza and Dallas Braden and Greg Colley and Adam Stanko and all these guys, Dana O'Neill, who all kind of put a retweet and say, hey, we support Adnan, good for you. This is great to speak out against extremism. And that there's, you can have your faith and be proud of it, but also be a public figure and denounce whatever misinformation or negativity is associated with your faith. So I wasn't sure if somebody at ESPN PR or my suits are going to go, hey, listen, you can't be tweeting that stuff. But thankfully, there was none of that. It's actually one of the most popular tweets I've ever had. 350 retweets, 225 likes. You know what I mean? And I got a lot of negativity. At first, it was like, hey, good for you, man, speaking out against extremism. But then I got a bunch of tweets from guys who were like, hey, man, your religion's poisonous. Death to Islam. I'm with Trump. You guys are brutal. And I was like, this is tough stuff to read.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one thing to throw yourself out there and pat yourself on the back and say, look at how self-congratulatory I am. People are also supportive, but some people are not that liberal. And a lot of people are closed-minded. And they said, hey, I used to like you before, but now the fact that I know you're Muslim, I don't care for you. And I don't like your religion. Yeah, it was brutal, man.
You got a sense then, and again, no man in the business faces anything like what women face online in terms of harassment. But that's interesting. That's probably the closest you have clearly come then to what the stream of invective that a lot of women in the business face daily.
Perfectly said. It was vitriolic. You know what I mean? It was offensive. It was personal. And like you said, compared to what the women face all the time, it's probably a drop in the ocean. But to me, it was impactful. And I thought, oh my God, okay, do I next time say I should say something or should I not say something? But my view was this. My bosses didn't say anything. If they'd asked me, I would have said, listen, go to what true Islam is. Check out the website.
Right.
I'm not espousing a political belief. I'm just supporting my faith and trying to clear up erroneous stereotypes. If there's an issue with that, well, then I don't understand why Christians and Jews can tweet about their faith. You know what I mean? As simple as that. If I tweeted, Rich, hey, Trump is a moron, or he's a bigot, that's different because I'm taking a personal attack against a guy who's in the public figure. That's different. But I think if I said Trump is wrong when he says you should ban all Muslims, I don't, and it's a gray area. Like I said, maybe they'd be upset, maybe they wouldn't be.
And this leads into, I think, a fair segue into Kurt Schilling, who is somebody you worked with, who you get along with. You consider him a friend?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's good. And I think where, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on Kurt because it sort of what has happened has happened. I'm someone who repeatedly said he wrote he should not be suspended.
Right.
Prior to this last one, got crushed from people. Whenever you're getting crushed from both the left and the right, maybe you're doing something right.
People have always thought you're some New York liberal. Now they think you're some conservative because of the fact you supported Schill.
Okay. At the end, though, I think, and as I wrote, I think Kurt forced ESPN's hand to the point where they had to make a move because. And I think Schilling was a good analyst, but I think what he does as a baseball analyst, you are eminently replaceable. It's a position where you can find other people to do this, and if you become too big a headache for the company, I think they will let you go versus somebody like John Gruden or somebody making money like a Bayless or a Smith on a show. This is my words, Anna. I don't want you to...
Of course, man.
Yeah, I don't want you... Because, I realize this gets into sort of management stuff. But this leads me to this. Was it tricky terrain for you when Kurt was putting stuff on his Facebook account? And I would like to believe, I don't think Kurt hates Muslims. I mean, he's been very sort of specific about,
radical Islam.
Radical Islam or extremist. Again, some people will see what he did as bigotry, other people will not. On a person-to-person basis is what I'm interested in. How did you sort of manage that relationship knowing that he's a public figure, he was putting stuff out there that you may not have particularly agreed with, but you also know the guy and generally like him and liked working with him. So that to me must have been an interesting dynamic.
Before I answer, is it neurotic or endearing that I've been rehearsing this?
I think there are certain hot spots that I think if I was your CIA agent, I'd be like, let's go this way. Bet you agree?
This was like take 8 that I delivered in the mirror.
Bet shaking your head.
Like this isn't even on video, and I'm still practicing what my facial reactions are going to be.
You're like Pacino, Scent of a Woman. You're doing like 50. You're doing like 20 different things.
I'll say this. Right. I worked with Kurt Schilling, 3 years, and we got along great. He's a fantastic analyst. He's super smart about the game of baseball. You sit with him, and you learn something every time. He's so insightful. He's really funny. He's a great guy to be around because he's always busting chops. And he's the kind of guy that will talk about politics and his beliefs, but he'll do so in a disarming way. For example, I don't eat pork. So when I'm eating pizza, I'll always order the veggie pizza or cheese, etc. So he'd look at the pizza and go, oh, broccoli pizza? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I eat whatever. It's veggies. He's like, oh, liberal pizza. I'm like, what are you there's nothing liberal about this. No, that's liberal pizza. Like Dallas Braden gets, pineapple on his pizza. Oh, yeah, of course, liberal pizza. That's the way you guys are. Yeah. No. So that's kind of the way he is. So it's not like I think people have this perception that he walked in the green room and goes, all right, let's talk about this hot button issue. No, he wouldn't. He'd come in. He's busting chops on each guy equally. When he found out I was Canadian, he goes, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. He goes, they hid that from me. I'm like, why? He goes, I hate Canada. I hate everything about you. Socialism, the medicine, the French language, nothing. I dislike Canadians viciously.
He likes hockey, though, I think.
He likes hockey. He likes the Bruins. That's it. So as a guy, you hang out with him. Yeah, he's a good dude. He was fun to be around. Now, what happened when he tweeted out that, by the way, is it meme or meme? I'm going to bet on this one.
What's meme? I think we were saying meme.
Okay, when he sent the meme. That may have been, Rich, one of the most uncomfortable days I've ever had at a company.
Imagine.
I'm driving to Williamsport, the Little League World Series, and I'm getting texts from Jonah Carey and Keith Law and my John Chick and Evering Ho and some of my best friends back home. And they're going, did you see this? Like, Shill's going to get fired. And I felt sick to my stomach. I said, oh, my God. He tweeted out a picture of Hitler, and the meme is saying that, they said 5 to 10% of Germans were Nazis. What if, this is true with regards to Muslims? Right. And he's saying if those are the real numbers, it's staggering. I'm like, oh, my God. So I called my agent. I didn't want to say his name. Let's call him Kaiser Soze.
Right.
I called Kaiser. And he goes, talk to Lori Orlando in the talent office. Talk to Phil Orleans. He runs baseball. And Lori's the one who hired me. I owe her an incredible amount of gratitude. And she's completely conscientious and personal. She goes, listen, I got your back. I understand why you're upset. We're going to figure this thing out. Don't worry. I talked to Phil, and he goes, listen, through a confluence of events. This is actually your last thing for us for baseball. You're moving to college football. Join the leaf-fitting Bill Graff army. I'm like, yeah. He goes, so listen, we haven't announced it yet, but I don't think Shill's going to be there, okay? So you're not even going to see him. So whatever ends up happening between you guys, you'll figure it out. You want to be on the air. Because I said, now I'm having this situation. Anish Shroff, one of my best friends, he was great. We were talking on the phone. He goes, you're going to end up feeling like an Uncle Tom. Like if other Muslims are watching you going, oh my God, how can you laugh at that guy's jokes?
Very tricky position for you.
Right. How can you care about his opinion about the Cubs and what he's saying about your faith?
Right.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So Phil was very understanding. We get there. I see Mark Gross, senior vice president. He goes, listen, I talked to Shill. And he goes, I got way too long an explanation. Basically, he saw it. He wasn't really thinking. He tried to delete it. Blah, blah, blah. We'll figure it out. And then one of the guys, so I'm like, all right, we'll deal with it. When one of the guys mentioned, they go, well, he's won. I'm like, what do you mean? They go, Curt Schilling won today. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, he got it out there that he's this hardline, right-wing Christian conservative. He doesn't have to come to the Little League World Series. He probably doesn't care about. And so he wins. And that really struck a chord with me. I go, well, that's not fair. So on the air, and I know Al Michaels talked about this in his book. He feels like a scoundrel or a mischief maker. I can't remember the word he actually used, but I'm like, I have to say something.
The rascal.
The rascal.
Right.
So I'm with Kirkjian, and out of nowhere, Rich, has no context. I just say, we're here in Williamsport. Crowd's going crazy. And I'm like, what a great place. Regardless of religion or race, it's wonderful to feel that everybody is so inclusive here. Kirkjian, God love him, just completely misses what I did, goes into his spiel. Ravitch immediately texts, like, okay, great. So now you're politicizing the opening of baseball tonight. The next day, I don't know if Carl texted him or whatever, but Schill texts, and this is what he said. He goes, hey, I know you know me well enough to know I'm not racist, but if I upset you or your family, I'm sorry. So I text back and say, let's do this over the phone. I don't want to do this over text. All right. Yeah. So I talked to him the next day, and he goes, listen, dude, I am so sorry. And you know, we've all made mistakes. You know when someone is sincere and genuine. And he must have apologized a half a dozen times. This is a guy who should be in the Hall of Fame. He's a World Series champion. He's won a ton of games. He's been a success, everything in life. He doesn't have to apologize to me. He could just go, whatever. If Virk's upset, I don't care. I still got my job.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, just because he's
nobody
an
in
athlete,
management's telling him to say sorry.
I get that, but like this gets into larger star system. Like he should have. I'm glad he apologized because he wanted to apologize to you on a human-to-human basis, don't
Correct.
you think?
And that's what he said. He goes, listen, dude, I think the world of you. He goes, I got no problem with your religion. My only issue is radical Islam. And I go, Shill, this is the only point I want to make with you. I'm on the same side as you. We're on the same team.
Right.
Like, who would be more upset than me at ISIS? Right. They're making all Muslims look bad. They actually kill the majority of Muslims.
No one is supporting radical Islam, right?
Correct.
At least that's what I know.
And he said, he goes, listen, I get it, man. He goes, you're just like, he goes, I work with a lot of veterans. And he goes, you're like those anti-war veterans. They know the damage that war causes. That's why they're so against it. So he's really apologetic. We didn't do a fight. Okay, it's done. A month later, he happens to send me a text, and it's like sending directions to his house. And at this point, I wouldn't say I'm embittered, but I'm like, whatever. We're over it. I'm doing college football. He'll do his thing. Right. And I was like, what is this? Are you at a house party? And later on, he texts back. He's like, oh, it's just directions to this idiot's house. And the next couple hours or so, he sends me a video message. And it's him like outside. And I'm telling you, he was so sincere and so authentic in his apology. He was like, hey, dude. He's like, I haven't seen you. I didn't realize you were going to college football. I wouldn't see you. But I just want to say I'm so sorry. I hope our relationship didn't take too much of a beating because you know I think the world of you. And if I did anything to offend you or upset you or your family, like I'm so sorry. And, I hope we can move through this. And I'm like, you know what? A lot of people, Rich, would apologize maybe once.
Right.
Fingers crossed to get through it. But when you see someone's face, how contrite he was, I'm like, we're done. Like, I'm a forgiving person. I make mistakes all the time. Like, we're good. So people want to judge Curt Schilling and say, you know what? What he says about transgenders and bathrooms is upsetting to me. I get it. Because as a Muslim, I saw what he tweeted and what I saw on Facebook, and I was upset. But as a guy, I've always got along with him really well. And he doesn't walk in the green when we work together and said, hey, Give me. These are my thoughts on Prophet Muhammad. We just are talking about baseball, and he's ripping on me for whatever and being Canadian. So ultimately, I think people would be surprised, but I really enjoyed working with Curt Schilling. I learned a ton from working with him. I'd work with him again tomorrow, and I wish him nothing but the best. And I think the company was put in a really tough position.
Right.
But I think, to your point, ESPN said, listen, man, I get First Amendment rights. You want to say what you want, but this is a private company. At the end of the day, if we tell you not to do something, you can't keep doing it.
Exactly.
All right? One or two, fine. If I sent that True Islam tweet and John Skipper says to me, hey, listen, you can't tweet about religion at all. Okay, got it, no problem.
Right. If you did it again,
right?
There's freedom of speech on your social media feed, but there is a price to pay from a private company if they disagree with what you tweeted and you are employed under them.
I'm completely convinced Bet's going to take to that last part, and that's going to be the opener of this podcast.
Going to be. I don't think so. Well,
the exact in is going to be, I enjoyed working with Curt Schilling. That's why I paused when I said it, and I gave it a little room at the end to cut it.
No, who knows what the tease is.
And I'll just add, by the way, Curt wears ladies' underwear, just so you can't use that clip.
All right. Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that, and not too long ago on Twitter, I said basically something to the effect of that. he had reached out and apologized to you. And it was amazing how many people thought I was then justifying all of Schilling's beliefs.
Right.
Which is frustrating because there's a nuance. You could say that this guy, if nothing else, acknowledged that he may have been hurtful to somebody he cared about when he worked and still disagree with what his political opinions are and what he said.
Correct.
Right. And you have nothing else, at least in the last 10 minutes, have at least given us some context about you. I still, listen, I don't like what Schilling tweeted on any of this stuff, but at least you provided context on a one-to-one basis of how he felt about you.
Correct, and that's my view. Like I said, if somebody sees what he says and goes, I think he is a repulsive, repugnant human being, you can hold whatever belief you want, but I've actually worked with a guy, he was a teammate of mine, and I miss working with him, and that's genuine.